Many are upset over the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, with some people claiming that it was rigged because many people bet a lot of money and they lost a lot of money. Allegedly, there's this script that got leaked showing how the fight was supposed to go down between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul.
Netflix just sued Mike Tyson and Jake Paul over what's being called a scripted circus. Sorry, fight. 6 months of hype, millions of fans on the edge of their seats, and what do we get? About faker than a reality TV finale. Seriously, did you two really think no one would catch on? Come on, it was that obvious.
Tyson versus Jake Paul just got Netflix sued. People got big problems.
So what's the grand plan to fix this? Because let's be honest, the damage is already done. You didn't just wreck your own reputations, you somehow dragged the entire sport of boxing down with you. Impressive, really. At this point, even an apology would feel scripted. Bravo, guys. Truly top-tier work.
Jake didn't deserve it, but he got there through business, and I get that. For people like me who value what boxing is supposed to be about, right? The reason I had a whinge about Tyson Fury not fighting the best that time.
Fans had been salivating for months, eagerly waiting for the ultimate showdown between the legendary Mike Tyson and YouTuber-turned-boxer Jake Paul. The anticipation was electric. Everyone was bracing for that glorious moment when Paul would get knocked out so hard he'd wake up scrolling through YouTube comments, wondering how to film his next comeback video.
It is two athletes getting a payday and nothing else. And from the highlights, using that word real loosey-goosey, that I watched of it, there wasn't even really much of a fight there.
Instead, what did we get? A circus. A scripted, glitchy disaster that left everyone wondering if Netflix thought we were born yesterday. The red flags were everywhere, especially when the so-called most anticipated punches of the decade, barely, seemed to land. We signed up for a fight and got a poorly acted drama instead.
It's just, from the very beginning, I said there would be no knockouts in this fight. I was very, very firm in that prediction. And there was no knockouts in this fight. Not only was there no knockouts, there was no anything worthwhile. As I said from the beginning, this is just a cash.
Let's not forget the payouts. Jake Paul walked away with a cool $40 million from this so-called epic showdown, while Mike Tyson, the man who once built a legacy with his fists, settled for $20 million. It felt less like a fight and more like Tyson tossing aside his legacy like last season's sweater. A quick cash grab, a few soft punches, and boom, instant payday. It's the kind of deal that makes you question everything you thought you knew about sports, money, and dignity. And what did Netflix get? Eyeballs, pay-per-view cash, viral buzz, enough to make you wonder if they care about the sport at all. Forget The Witcher or Stranger Things. Their new hit show might as well be Fake Fights 101, How to Make Millions Off Hype.
Is this fight real?
It's as real as all the money that's being bet. Yes, that's a qualified yes. There were certain differences from conventional fights or conventional male fights. There are 2-minute rounds.
The whole thing felt like one of those cringe-worthy reality shows. You know it's scripted, but you watch anyway because you're already hooked. And Netflix? They don't care. They've got us glued to our screens, wondering what circus act they'll roll out next. Who needs real sports when you can stage a fake fight and still rake in the views? Nice one, Netflix. You've officially mastered the art of cashing in on chaos. And now you're pretending you had nothing to do with it? Please, don't act surprised that Tyson and Jake Paul might have played a round of let's pretend for a fat paycheck. You banked on it, and it worked.
Citing over 100,000 people complaining online, the lawsuit claimed that the boxing fans along would go to my Instagram.
Because the fans definitely knew something was off. The glitches, the missing punches, the weird energy in the air. This wasn't just bad streaming quality. It felt like watching a poorly written soap opera. Only instead of tears, the audience was left with outrage.
People keep emailing me and asking me, what did I think about the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight? The reason I didn't want to talk about the fight and the reason I was so adamant that I wouldn't be talking about the fight while it was going on during stream is because it's just...
Fans had been waiting months for this moment, and what did they get? A poorly executed, possibly staged mess that had viewers throwing popcorn at their screens. Now, with Netflix scrambling to dodge responsibility and point fingers at Tyson and Paul, fans aren't buying it for a second. Cue the lawsuit, Netflix, because that live event didn't just flop. It turned into a full-blown corporate disaster.
I do believe it was scripted. What? And I believe that Tyson was certainly held back. What? Look, I'm a fighter and I can see it.
And trust me, popcorn isn't the only thing being thrown around now. If the fight didn't play out like a scripted drama, maybe no one would be raising eyebrows. But here we are. So Netflix went ahead and sued Mike Tyson and Jake Paul over the alleged scripted fight, and honestly, it's well-deserved. Mike Tyson, the same man who once struck fear into the hearts of champions, now finds himself tangled in a mess with a YouTuber who seems to think boxing is just tossing a few slow punches for a paycheck.
I'm glad to see that because if I hadn't saw that, I would be worried that this fight may not even be free.
Tyson, my dude, you were a legend. A legend. And what did you do? You tossed that legacy aside like an old ratty sweater you couldn't even be bothered to donate. And then there's Jake Paul, a guy who somehow convinced the world that getting punched for a living qualifies as a legitimate career path. If there were any justice left in the sport, both of you would have been sued just for what you did to boxing.
Catches him flush on the chin. Tyson's leg buckle, and he drops to the canvas. Then he's out for the count, but Tyson, despite his warrior heart, cannot beat the 10 count. Winner Jake Paul by KO. What?
Well, the real reason Mike Tyson and Jake Paul turned the fight into a Showtime circus? Money. Tyson, a man who once made millions by terrifying opponents, suddenly found himself in the ring again. Why? Because Netflix showed up with a fat paycheck.
I believe that he was making the money he says he's making. Showtime Boxing wouldn't have gone out of business, and Showtime would have made sure.
Jake Paul, the guy who somehow built a career out of being a YouTube villain and punching people for a living. I mean, seriously, Jake, what are you even doing? You're out here making millions pretending to be a boxer, getting paid for the kind of nonsense that should have stayed in the comedy skits.
Somewhat rigged. Now, there's varying degrees of arguments. The first is that Tyson was required to complete 8 rounds for money. Some say that's how it was rigged. He's not going to go all out to shut down Jake Paul because he wants $20 million.
But here's the problem. In their quest for a quick payday, both of them made a mockery of real sports. This wasn't just about putting on a show. It was about doing the absolute bare minimum and still getting away with it. Sure, Netflix probably told them just pretend it's a fight, nobody will care. But here's the thing, we do care. We watch Tyson, whose greatest skill is making viral videos, and Jake, the guy who needs a script to beat up an old man. That's a new low.
Mike Tyson fight.
Interesting.
Script. How so? What do you mean by
just
script?
Weird. It's just
like scripted in what way?
No.
And now, look at the fallout. The script leaks, the conspiracy theories explode, and suddenly, everyone's questioning everything. Was this fight even real? Is Netflix just in the business of faking everything now?
Well, X has spoken. The fight was scripted. Everyone is talking about this on X, and the script was actually leaked on X
The public reaction? It was ugly. If Netflix thought they could slide by unnoticed, they were in for a rude awakening. Fans didn't just tweet their anger, they were ready to burn down the internet. The fight was a disaster. The glitches were a joke. And honestly, it was hard to tell if we were watching a boxing match or a poorly scripted Netflix original. People started asking, is this real? Or did Netflix just decide to make another disaster movie? Spoiler alert, it wasn't even good enough for that. Then came the social media storm. Fans went wild faster than Netflix's buffering icon, calling the whole thing everything from a joke to the worst event ever. Was the fight even real? Or were we all just pawns in some bizarre Netflix reality show?
Mike Tyson tweeted that he almost died over the summer. He said, he had a bunch of blood transfusions, just had to fight to get healthy. And then his performance yesterday against Jake Paul, just your thoughts on what we saw.
Mike Tyson was right, and I was wrong.
Influencers were already planning how to monetize the disaster because, hey, at least someone was cashing in on this mess. If this is the future of boxing, where every fight is a scripted spectacle, fans might just start punching their own TVs out of frustration.
People keep emailing me and asking me, what did I think about the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight? The reason I didn't want to talk about the fight and the reason I was so adamant that I wouldn't be talking about the fight while it was going on during stream is because it's just...
This lawsuit could be a game changer for Netflix. and every other streaming platform out there. If it sticks, it could open the floodgates for more lawsuits every time Netflix botches a live event. Imagine millions of fans, popcorn in hand, ready to watch the next big fight, only for the stream to freeze mid-punch. Do you think people will just shrug it off? Yeah, right. Netflix could be facing a lot more legal headaches down the line. And let's not even get started on the impact it could have on boxing itself. Will the audience even care about the difference anymore, or will they just tune in for the next train wreck?
Is currently being sued over their Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. And it's not because people think the fight was rigged, though I have questions, and that's what we'll get into. It's because it didn't work. And a lot of people were...
His balance seemed off and he struggled to stay upright. But the real question is about the future of celebrity boxing and pay-per-view events. Buckle up, because if this is the new trend, we're about to see an entire generation of athletes who are more famous for being famous than for actually knowing how to throw a punch. Expect more big-name celebs cashing in on these glorified slap fights, where the real competition takes a backseat to who's got the best script, the juiciest drama, and the flashiest pay-per-view numbers. Real athletes? They're going to be shoved aside, replaced by YouTube stars who can barely remember their own punchlines. When will audiences finally wake up and realize they're just watching actors in gloves? When the real talent gets drowned out by all the stage nonsense, will anyone even care about the authenticity of sports anymore? Are we heading into a world where we have to Google, "Is this fight real?" before every match? If Netflix doesn't clean up its act fast, this could be just the beginning of a much larger mess. And as for boxing, who knows? The next real fight could be just as scripted as this one. We might be heading toward a future where the only genuine thing in the ring is the sweat on the fighter's brow, and even that could be CGI.